Hello, everyone. This is Ed Breniger, and this is the Eddy Network podcast. And this is a background video on networks of relationships. The Eddy Network podcast is premised upon the idea that this is a network of relationships of people that I'm meeting or already know, who I am interviewing to talk about who they are and what they're doing in their life and why they may have something to say to us. It's a very interesting thing for me because I get to talk to people who may not know, but have been introduced to me through someone who thinks I should talk with them. And I encourage you, when you know of someone that you think of as having something worthy of being heard by people around the world, that you would reach out to me at ed@edbreniger.com and say, let's have a conversation. I'd like to introduce you to so-and-so because I think that they would be a good person to be interviewed. So that's how this podcast is an experiment, a demonstration project, so that you can see how a network of relationships can function. So you watch me as I reach out to people and I meet them and I interview them and we talk about our lives. And in many cases, the people that I am interviewing, I am only meeting them for the very first time in that moment of our interview. So I want you to make sure that when you're watching these videos, that you're looking to see actually what is going on so that you can take the lessons and the insight and the example that I'm presenting to you as a way of how do I reach out to new people and build my own network of relationships. So I want to say a couple of things about networks that I think are important. The first thing is that they are a structure. They're both a social structure and an organizational structure. As a social structure, they're a place where we meet people, we connect with people. As an organizational structure, it is how we connect with people who are, say, clients or patients. They're people who are vendors. We have relationships with those people, and maybe they're connecting us with other people who can provide services to us, or they're connecting us to people where we can provide services to them. This is how a network forms. It's a way of exchanging benefits. It's a mutual benefit arrangement when it works at its best. We're not used to actually doing this. I mean, we have it at some kind of low level because there's a natural level of networks that take place in our families, in our neighborhoods, in our schools, things like that. But we're not used to thinking of these networks being how we actually form an organization and operate an organization. Instead, we're used to a structure which is very confining, very top down, starts with the CEO or the owner or the executive director, and the work that is done is directed downward. And so we are under the authority of someone. And usually, and what really is happening more and more in these hierarchical structured organizations is that there's no accountability between the levels. I don't get to say what I think I should say when I believe that what we're doing is not going to produce what we think it will. You know, if I'm a worker or if I'm a middle manager, I don't really have that privilege in most places that I see, unless the CEO, the manager, or the owner is a wise person who understands that they really are dependent on the really good work of their people in order to succeed in their business. But that isn't always the case. And so in many cases, what I see in the work that I've done over the last 40 years is seeing how these organizational structures really confine people so that they really do not have any freedom to do really good work. They don't have freedom to take initiative. They don't have freedom to solve problems. They don't have freedom to communicate beyond what they are allowed to by the structure as it exists. A network of relationships is the opposite of this. It is open to establishing new relationships for problem solving, for new product development, for finding new sales opportunities, for communicating in a way that builds a community of shared values within an industry. All these things are possible through a network of relationships where you as a person have the privilege and the opportunity to take initiative to make a difference in what goes on. And these relationships within the structure of a network of relationships, it begins with a connection. So when I talk about the Eddy network being a place of where you can say, well, Ed, here's someone I think you should interview, and I say, would you introduce us to one another? Would you just send an email to the two of us and say, I think you two should know each other? That's all you have to do. And then we'll take it from there. And if there's a worthy topic for an interview for the podcast, then we'll pursue that. We'll set that up, or maybe we'll even do it right then and there. The flexibility of working through a network of relationships is that you can maximize the time that you have to give to the work that you have to do. And so not only is there the connection that happens through the introduction of one person to another, closing a loop, closing a triangle, closing that hole that exists between two people who know a third person but do not know each other. When that is closed, then something good comes from that. And it survives and thrives because it is going to be based on respecting the other person and building trust within that circle or that triangle or that large network of people, because this is how these networks function well. And we enter into them thinking, okay, there's going to be mutual benefit. So in many cases, the hierarchical structure is oriented around exploiting people and using people for what one person can gain from the other. It's a very transactional environment. A network of relationships is a very transformational environment. So it allows us to find opportunities that wouldn't exist except by being introduced to someone brand new. And I go into places all the time to meet people just so that I can see if there's an opportunity there where I can bring a benefit to them. And they, in return, can do so with me. So this idea of networks of relationships is not just a kind of an add-on tactic for how you do sales calls or manage a client list. No, this is actually how we build a society of mutuality, a society of respect and trust. This is how a society functions when everyone respects the other person. And we're not in that kind of situation now. And it's just not sustainable in my mind. So I want you to understand why these networks are important. I wrote 20, I think it was 20 columns last year on my Substack, The Future of Leadership, about networks. And you'll be able to find the titles and the links to those in the show notes for this video. And I hope you will go look at that. If you're new to this video, my podcast, if you're new to the podcast, subscribe and like the button, and go over to my Substack page and subscribe there, because you're going to get not only this kind of content where I'm talking about these important developments in the world of leadership and organizations and society, but you're also going to get a chance to meet other people through the comments that go on there. So the comments, this is why I'm doing all of this. The comments on the Substack is a form of network production. You share your thoughts there, and you will find that other people will respond to you. And if you respond back to them, then you can find a way for the two of you or the three of you or the four of you to begin to talk with one another. So some of the people who I am interviewing for my podcast are people who I first met as commenters on other people's Substack pages. See, this is how the relationship forming function of our lives takes place. We go where we have conversation. You'll find a few articles on conversation in the link in the show notes. So networks of relationships built around conversation, built around respect, built around trust, and built around the mutuality of the benefits that come to all of us through this. I hope this is important. I hope this is valuable to you. If you have questions, please ask them in the comments, because I think what you will find is if you give yourself to learning about networks, that you will find yourself changing in a very positive way. And you will meet people that you would never have met otherwise. And that's part of the challenge that I think we all face, which is, how do I meet the people that I really need to know, because they bring some insight or some wisdom or some opportunity to me that I would never find in any other manner. So thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your consideration and thinking about this. And if I can help you in any way to work with you on the development of your network, please reach out to me. And if you know someone that you think I should be interviewing for my podcast, connect us together, introduce us so that we can establish a relationship, and maybe then you become the beneficiary of it, because we'll have a conversation right here on the Eddy Network podcast. So thank you very much, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.